In today's video, we'll be painting up a Dwarf Cleric from the Dungeons & Dragons wizkids range. Okay, so with these wizkids models, they're already pre-primed, so we don't have to worry about priming, so we can move straight on with our paint. So we're going to start off here with base flesh. So we're going to be using this, of course, to be painting up the flesh of our dwarf here, which has actually got a reasonably darker tone to it as well, which I like a little bit more. It's a good base to work off, as it is base flesh, so you can go either up or down, making it a darker or lighter skin tone. I'm going to be keeping it pretty much the same color throughout the whole video here. Okay, so now with our flesh completed, we're going to come in now with some electric blue. And we'll be using electric blue over quite a bit of this miniature here, so we're going to be using it over the main part of his clothing, so we want to get it just on here, over the back of him. Now, I have thinned this paint down a bit because there is a lot of wrinkles and folds and stuff in the clothing, so we want to make sure we get all of that, and thinning down the paint is the best way to do that, waiting for the layer of paint to dry and coming over the second layer of paint that's just as thin to really get everywhere nice and smooth with an even coverage. I'm also going to be doing a little bit of this electric blue just inside the pauldron as well. I want to put a little bit of colour into there too. Okay, so now with all the blue painted in, what we're going to be doing now is moving on with some basalt grey. And we're going to be using the basalt grey to just be painting up his pants there. Now, he doesn't actually have a lot of pants exposed because it's covered up with a whole heap of armour, but we just want to get a little bit of that grey in there to separate out the colours, and we can tell that there's definitely a pair of pants on there as well. So just a nice little step to do here. Okay, now with our dwarf's pants painted up and completed, we're going to move on now with some charred brown. And the charred brown we're going to be using to be painting up our nice battle-hardened dwarf's warhammer, and we just want to be painting the handle with this. So just a nice easy step here, just painting up the handle in that charred brown. Okay, now with the handle all painted up, we're going to be moving on, and we're going to start off with some mahogany brown. Mahogany brown we're going to be using to be painting up just a little part of the dwarf here. We're going to be painting up one of his not belts I should say, his bags he has on. He has a couple of belts with bags attached to them, as well as some other leather pieces as well. And I'm just going to be picking out one of these with the mahogany brown. And with that one completed, we're going to come in now with some cavalry brown. I'm going to be doing basically the same thing, just with another part. And I'm doing this to vary out the colours on the miniature. I don't want every leather strap and bag to be the same colour. I don't like that on miniatures. I think it looks a little unrealistic. So that's why I vary as many things up as I can with a bunch of different colours, so it complements each other and looks a lot more realistic on the miniature. Okay, so now with those bags painted up, we're going to come in now with some leather brown. And what we're going to be doing with the leather brown is we're going to be doing some more leather work, of course. But what we're going to be doing, he's got this big belt across his chest here. We want to be making sure we get that good coverage with the leather. It has a lot of little detail on it and stuff there too. So make sure that your paints are thinned down and you can get into all those little nooks and crannies on the belt. Okay, so now with all those belts completed, what we're going to be doing now is mixing some leather brown with some lava orange. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be mixing it up roughly even, maybe a little bit more of the lava orange and the leather brown. And we're using this, of course, as his hair color. So we want it to try to look like a natural sort of red-headed dwarf. So I'm trying to go for as natural look I can. Now, this mixture is going to be up to you what you feel is a good look for this, but this is what I've decided on. I know it can be a little bit hard to tell what sort of ratio you want to mix this in, but this part is totally up to you. Okay, so now with all his hair painted in, what we're doing is coming in with some deck tan now, and we're using deck tan to be painting up his gloves and his boots. Now, I'm going with that the deck tan, which is sort of a off-white creamish color, because he's a dwarf cleric, and I feel like they like to stand up for their symbols of brightness and hope, and I think that this off-whitish color is a better fit for the cleric rather than going with some leather brown and stuff that we have here, as well as to vary it up from all the browns we've already put on the miniature as well. So that's why I've chosen the deck tan to do this. Okay, so now we have his boots and his gloves complete. We're going to come in now with some ivory. And with the ivory, we're going to be using this to be painting up just the main little skirt part he has in front of him here. Want that to be nice and bright white, or not quite white if we've gone with the ivory here, which is just a slight off-white. I don't want it to be pure white because I feel like he wants some nice shining light of hope since he's a Dwarf Cleric, and I think whites and all these light colours we're going for is giving off that nice cleric-y sort of vibe. Okay, so now with all of that complete, what we're going to be doing is moving on with some metal. So starting off now with gunmetal, what we're going to be doing is painting up a majority amount of the armor with this gunmetal. So we want to be painting up the shoulder pads here, we want to be painting up the bit of the hammer, any of he actually has a chainmail shirt underneath, maybe a little bit hard to see where I've painted on a lot of the blue on here, but he does have a chainmail shirt underneath as well, so don't forget to get that. So anywhere where we can see all of our metal, we want to be painting all of that in the gunmetal here. Okay, now with all that gunmetal on and painted, what we're going to be doing now is coming back in with some leather brown, and we're going to be just getting in some little spots here. So we want to be just putting up these little leather straps that are holding up his knee pads here. Just very carefully, we don't want to try and avoid a lot of the areas we've already painted over here. So come in with a thinner brush if you need to do this step. Okay, so once those leather straps are all painted up, we're going to come in now with some hammered copper. And this is going to stick our miniature out just a little bit more on the table. So we want to be placing this in sort of a detailed area. So for this, I'm going to be using on the inside of the knee pads here, where it's a little design, or I should say a little bit of a cutout. So I'm going to fill that in with the hammered copper. Just the little bits on the edge of the shoulder pads, because I want it to stick out a little bit so we can see a little bit of different styling and definition to this armor, rather than just having it all big, plain, silver, gunmetal colored. I wanted to vary it up and give our cleric a little bit more flash and style with that. So we want to just coming in with these pieces with the hammered copper, just adding little accents to certain areas. And one of the big areas that I'm going to be doing this over is the the end of the hammer here, where he's got this nice skull carved into it. So I'm just going to be doing just a little bit around the rim, and I'm just going to be picking out the skull as well with the detail, because I want to have it as a nice branding as he's smiting some enemy that he's coming across. So it's going to add in a lot more detail than just having it all plain silver. Okay, so now with all of that done, completely dry, we're going to come in now with some greedy gold. And what we're going to be doing with the greedy gold is he has a little circlet on his head there, and that's what I'm going to pick out with the greedy gold. So just coming in with a nice fine tip brush, since it's a very small bit of detail going around his head, and I'm just using the fine tip to just catch the sides of it with my brush, as you can see here, just so I can pick out that nice circlet he has on his head. So remember to just take your time here, and if you do go over it, it's not a big deal. Since we're still in the basing stage, you can come back and fill in with the hair color. Okay, so now with all of that complete, what we're going to be doing is starting off the washes. So starting off with, of course, a flesh wash. We're going to be using this to cover all of our Dwarven Cleric's flesh, as well as the hair color as well. I'm giving that over with the flesh wash because it has sort of a reddy browny tint in it as well, and I think it'll help bring out the hair color just a little bit more with that brown and orange mixture we have in there. So just giving everywhere a nice coat and avoiding pooling in too many areas. Okay, so now with that flesh wash completely dry, what we'll be doing now is coming in with some agrax earthshade. Now the agrax earthshade we're going to be pretty much applying everywhere else over the miniature that is not metallic. So we want to be avoiding all the armor and stuff like that with this agrax earthshade, and we're just focusing on all the cloth, our belts, our pants, everything like that. Just everywhere that's not metallic is what we're aiming for, as well as also we want to avoid getting it where we've already placed a wash with the flesh wash color. We want to avoid that too. We don't want them mixing too much because it can taint the colors and sort of merge them together. We want them to be separate washes. So just spending your time going everywhere and avoiding too many pooling spots. Okay, so once we have all of that wash dried up, what we're going to do now is come in, of course, with my signature nuln oil over top of my metallic. So I just love the effect that the metallics give off with the nuln oil on top of them. I like the way it darkens them down. It's just my favorite wash for applying over metallic. Such a nice color, and it really brings out the detail of that metal. So just covering all of the areas that are metal, of course, with our nuln oil. Okay, so once the washes are all completely dry, we can move on to the next step. So coming back in now with our hair color mixture, and this time I've just added just a little bit of ivory, as you can see, to the mixture to lighten it up a little bit, because we want to be hitting the highlights now. So I'm just using the edge of the brush, and luckily this miniature has some nice sculpted hair marks in there that we can really pick out our high points for all of those highlights. So this one's actually quite good on where to pick out the highlights, especially on the back of the head here. There's some nice raised parts that will really help you out. So just catching it with the edge of the brush, maybe taking a layer or two of our brighter color to bring it out as well. Okay, so once we have the highlights on the hair picked out, we're going to come back in now with our deck tan, and we're going to be using this, of course, to just pick out the areas where we did the deck tan, which is our gloves and our boots. So pretty much hitting the areas where we naturally want the light to hit, make it look a lot lighter, and we want to keep all that shade into the darkness so we can separate out those areas. And the good thing about this brown wash is dirtied them up, but since we want a cleaner looking cleric, coming back in with the deck tan is making a big difference. As you can see here, we don't have to add any of the white or anything to it to lighten it up. Okay, so now with that complete, what we're going to be doing now is moving on with some chainmail silver. And we'll be using this to, of course, highlight all of our areas we did in the gunmetal. And the chainmail silver is a lot brighter than the gunmetal, so this is going to pop out a lot more, especially with that nuln oil wash on top. So that's why I've gone from a dark metal with a dark wash to now coming in with a super light metal. So it's going to really catch that, as you can see on there, and it's going to really have those nice highlighted edges so it looks like it's gleaming in the sunlight. Okay, so now with all those metal edges completed, we're going to come back in, of course, now with some electric blue. And we want to use the electric blue to, of course, be painting the highlights. So it's basically what we're going to be doing here is, as you can see, there's a lot of deep recesses in this back bit here with where all the wash has gone in. So those parts we'll be keeping, and we'll basically be painting all of the high points all back on top of it. So basically sort of like painting over again, but we're just avoiding all of those little bits where we have some dark spots to bring it back up to a nice clean sort of look, and it looks more like shadow rather than a dirty piece of clothing. Okay, and one last highlight here that we definitely want to make sure we get in is we want to come back in with our ivory, and we want to be painting back up that nice bit of front skirt piece of clothing that we have here in the front. We would definitely want to make sure we spend maybe even a couple of layers of the ivory on here to get this back up to where it originally was, and we have just the very inside part where the darkness would naturally is, where you can see where a lot of the wash is settled in here as well. And with that, your miniature will now be complete, and all you have to be doing is basing it up however you want. You can just paint the base that already comes on. I'm going to be making a slightly fancier base. I'm not sure what I'll go with yet, but I hope you'll check it out in the final reveal. And with that, we have finished painting up our Dwarf Cleric from the Dungeons & Dragons WizKids range. And as you can see, I think we've achieved that look of having that nice pristine cleric who's ready to kick some undead butt. And I hope this video has been helpful for you, whether you want to follow along or it's just giving you inspiration for what you want to paint up as well. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.